So when you look at the corridor, obviously it transgresses all the political boundaries, all of the agency boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. So it almost mandates that we have to work together to get it done.
Right now, these are functioning as two separate trails, and the vision is it's one unified 45-mile trail from LaPorte all the way down to Greeley. It's just not happening yet because we have these two gaps.
You all know who Great Outdoors Colorado is? Yeah. Your lottery dollars at work. So when you buy a lottery ticket, a portion of that goes to Great Outdoors Colorado. 40% of that goes to Great Outdoors Colorado, and they do competitive grant cycles for parks, open space, trails. We all, our ears perked up and we wanted to apply for that. And so we started talking to our partners. So it was Larimer County, Fort Collins, Timnath, Windsor, and Greeley. And so our first question was, should we partner with Greeley, who is in Weld County, and the rest of us are in Larimer County, funded by the same county open space sales tax. And so when we looked at the bigger picture of things, it did make sense that we would include Greeley in our grant because it's one river corridor.
So with that funding source, primarily, you cannot condemn for land. So we never have condemned for the trail system. We came close in the old days, and the mayor had to go out and talk to a landowner and finally got it figured out. But recently, the trail system is such a huge amenity to the population. They need a developer coming in will work with us to get that trail system on their property because it just means more people coming into their area with a school and a trail and natural areas and all that. When the city does a 2-year citizen survey, which is done by a survey company, it's legit and all that, the number one item for satisfaction on recreational things is the trail system. Sometimes around 95% good and great kind of stuff. When we do the policy plan, that's when we go out to the public and say, what do you think? And we just did a big trail study, and it turned out that the top items that people wanted was connection to Timnath.
I love to ride, and I love to talk about bicycling. I consider myself a utilitarian cyclist. I describe my riding as getting from point A to point B to accomplish something instead of touring places and going around in circles, which doesn't really thrill me. I am very excited about the possibility of riding all the way from my house to Greeley. I've done the trip from, what is that, River Bluffs? That capability really is very exciting. I get to Greeley, I go out to eat somewhere, I explore the town, I come back. That's fun for me.
That piece of it, and then look at the river corridor and understand that it is valued for lots of different reasons. It's aesthetically pleasing. The same reasons that we want the trail there are the same reasons that people want to have a view out of their house there. It's the same reason that the eagle wants to nest there and not be bothered. It's the same reason maybe not the same reason, but another competing interest is it's our ancient gravel beds.
I'm wrong, but is it once this is built out, that will be over a third of the population of Timnath is in your development?
My opinion of that is if this is my backyard fence and the trail is right there, that's not a very desirable thing. If the trail is over 100 feet, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that.
It's a privacy.
It's a privacy
issue and a safety concern. However, on the contrary, as Dino and us have had lots of conversations, the economic value of houses adjacent to conserved land and trails actually increases.
Yeah. I have to carry the card for the public, for the recreational user. I have to. That's my mission. That's what I have to do, and that's what I get paid to do. How I carry that is my style and my relationships and my values and all that. Typically, I spend a lot of times with the natural resource folks, the stormwater people, the transportation people in the city sometimes, and of course the recreation people and the park maintenance people. So the good old days of putting the trail along the Poudre are gone. There's a lot of wildlife literature, documentation that says that's not very good. So what we like to do is blend that trail in and out, so it comes and goes. So the trail user experiences the river in a place that it makes some sense. It's not the most pristine wildlife area. And at the same time, don't end up with the trail so far away, we'll call it the Poudre, near the Poudre River Trail.
Larimer County already had some pretty tight flood control or land use codes related to where you could build and not build. including the floodplain. And when you look at sort of the damage that our community didn't sustain over this past week, there's not a lot of development right along the river corridor. Those restrictions have been in place for quite some time. And I mean, we also got half the amount of rain that Boulder and Lyons and Longmont did, so that also had a role, but there just really wasn't that much residential, commercial building sorts of damage compared to other areas.
So these riparian areas, you know, and the floodplains are going to be radically different ecologically than the vast majority of the plains or the foothills that are nearby, right? So the species that exist in these areas are going to be different. We have trees, as Liz said, and they're going to be utilized by a larger number of species than something that's only a few hundred meters away, right? So these areas are quite unique and important ecologically for that reason, because the water's running through them, because the species that are present are different, and because they're key sources of food and water for a huge number of species that utilize a much larger area beyond just this riparian strip.
Some value to, I think in Karen's world about natural areas and rivers and all that, about educating people.
Well, yeah, definitely that.
And so that's a piece where people will say, well, if I can't get on the Rapalo Bend natural area and enjoy it, why am I paying for it? Is it a wilderness area or what happened here? So there's a nice little value thing going on about enough that protects the resource, but yet enough that people say, let's do more of this. I'm willing to dip my pocketbook again and do some more of this.
Love the trails, love taking my son on the trails, my wife loves the trails.